So sit down and think, okay, what do I really want out of my next opportunity? Where do I want it to be? What do I want to be called? How much do I want to get paid? What kind of industry? Who do I want my peers to be? What about my boss? What do I want that person to be like? What's their background?
Welcome to Destination Dream Job, a podcast focused on giving you the confidence and strategy you need to transition into a career you love. Have you been feeling stuck and frustrated at work? I've been there. Hey, I'm Steph Gillis. I'm a career coach and resume writer. And over the past 2 years, I've written over 1,000 resumes and coached hundreds of people through their career transition. In this podcast, we will talk about what you need most: clarity in your career direction, confidence in your skills, and strategy to land your dream job. So grab your AirPods, head out for a walk, and let's dive in. Welcome back to the Destination Dream Job podcast. Today, I have with me Ramon Santillan. He is the founder of persuasiveinterview.com. He teaches his clients how to be more charismatic, feel and look more confident, and shows them the right way to brag about themselves during interviews and turn interviews into job offers. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Steph, for inviting me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so today we are going to talk about the job market trends and projections for 2025. I'm so excited to talk about this topic because so many people have been asking me, if it's going to change. I know 2024 has been an employer's market, and so I'm excited to dive into this topic. So just getting started, how do you see the state of the job market in this coming year? Is it going to stay that employer's market? Do you think that's going to make a shift?
I've been doing this professionally, coaching people to prepare for job interviews. And, specifically here in the US, and I've actually had a lot of clients abroad too, but let's just stick to the US because that's where I live. And, I've seen presidents come, presidents go, I've seen pandemics, global pandemics that we all have seen, markets up and down, all that stuff. And sometimes people tell me like, oh, it's easier to get a job done or get a job now, or they'll tell me like, oh, you must be real busy because people are looking for jobs. And I say, yeah, that's true. Like I always stay busy. But the reason I always stay busy is because our companies are always hiring top talent. So no matter if the economy's up or down, even with the pandemic, specifically with the pandemic, so I learned this lesson, is that we all thought we were going to die, right? Like, I mean, there was a global pandemic. And even then, companies were hiring. They never stopped hiring. Does it get more challenging? Yeah, probably. But hiring top talent never goes out of style, no matter what is happening. So I always tell people, like, yeah, like maybe it's easier to get a job, but you never want to rely on like the markets to get a job. When you need a job, you need a job. So I always tell people, like, you need to be prepared. If you're prepared, you will get the job no matter what is happening outside of your house. You need to be prepared for an interview. If it's good, you can still not get a job, even if you're the only applicant to a job, right? So you need to be prepared. So that's what I always tell people. You need to be prepared no matter what is happening outside.
Yeah, absolutely. Because even, as you're saying, even though it's been an employer's market, the job market is still strong. There's just more applicants for each position, which means that networking becomes even more important than it was before. Do you think that there are any industries that are projected to experience significant growth in the coming year? Or do you think, there's any industries to avoid or anything like that?
So it would be easy for people to just say, well, this industry is going to grow, this is going to shrink. Obviously AI is a hot topic right now. Everyone's into it. Crypto was real hot like about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years. But again, at the end of the day, like you can't chase a fad. You need to make sure you get a job that you in the industry you want to work in. At the end of the day, like you mentioned, networking, being prepared for the interview, knowing how to sell yourself, how to present yourself to the company as the top candidate is what's going to get you the job. My background is in accounting, so luckily or unfortunately, there was always a job for me somewhere, but I couldn't say at some point, well, I got to switch into AI because now that's a hot thing. Like maybe it's not the hot thing next year. And maybe if it's something hot, everyone's going to chase it, right? It's a fad. But I said, I want to get a job in my industry, in my field. I need to make sure I find a job where I want to be and where people want me to be, where I'm welcome. And I feel like I'm going to grow my career, that they respect me, they pay me well. And I'm around people I like being around and things that I want to do. So I always really tell people focus on that. Don't chase the fads. Don't chase what's again. It's kind of like looking at the stock market too. Like if you're reading a stock market tip on the newspaper, that means it's already old news. There's always something always new coming up. That's what you can keep an eye on, not the old stuff, the tomorrow stuff.
Yeah, that's such great tips, right? Because we can, if we follow the fads, I know a lot of people who did that during the pandemic. Tech was really hot and they were moving. Everyone was like, I want to move to tech. And then so many of those people experienced layoffs during the pandemic. And it didn't work out for everyone, right? Some people were able to bounce back really quickly. Other people had to switch industries because of that. And so I think that's such an important message is it doesn't really matter what the industries are doing. You want to find something that fits with you authentically and something that's going to, be a fit for you long term. What tips do you have for people who are looking to make a career change? And we keep talking about, networking and standing out in the job search. So what tips do you have for people to help them stand out or help them make a transition in the coming year?
To me, stuff looking for a job is just like dating. You can't learn how to love someone else until you start learning how to love yourself. So after a breakup, you can't just go out and start dating people and hope that you're going to find the right person, right? Your long term, your forever person. What should you do? You should sit down and think about, okay, what do I really want? And let's say, again, we're sticking to the dating example. What do I want in a partner? What do I want her or him to look like, uh, talk like, what kind of job, what kind of values, what kind of background? All those things matter. So I always tell people like, okay, sit down and don't just jump to a new job. That's like jumping into a new relationship. It might not be the right one for you. So sit down and think, okay, what do I really want out of my next opportunity? Where do I want it to be? What do I want to be called? How much do I want to get paid? What kind of industry? Who do I want my peers to be? What about my boss? What do I want that person to be like? What's their background? Uh, so do that first. The second thing I recommend is think about what do you have to offer these people. So you're looking for things you want them to offer you. So salary, title, location, remote, kind of boss, all this stuff. But also think about yourself. Like, what can I offer to that person? So again, going back to the dating example, when I was single and I said, okay, this is what I want in a partner, in a girlfriend. But what can I offer that person? So, I was very honest with myself. And here's the difference I want people to note. Being honest doesn't mean you're being critical of yourself. Because a lot of times we can go like, well, I'm overweight and I'm ugly and blah, blah, blah. No, no, no. That's being critical. You want to be honest. So I was being honest with myself. I was like, well, I could lose a little bit of weight. So what I did is I started going to the gym, watching my diet. But there's also things about me that I thought were people, women would find attractive. I have a good job. I think I'm funny in my own special way. Uh, all those things that I thought would be attractive. So I took stock of those things. And then once I knew what I wanted and what I could offer, then I started looking for that person. Same thing for the job. Sit down and think, what do you want out of the opportunity? And then think about what can I offer this company? Not every company is going to take you, and that's fine. We don't want all the companies. We want one, and we want the right one to pick you. Second thing, what can I offer that company? What makes me attracted to that company? Again, don't be critical of yourself. Be honest with yourself. If there's a skill that maybe you're lacking, okay, that's fine. Maybe start working on that skill so you can start becoming attractive. Have an extra point on your favor. Um, that's how I start my job search. That's my tip for anyone who's looking for a job. Start with what are you looking for? Because once you identify what you're looking for, you know what it looks like and you know where to find it. And then take stock of yourself, of your skill sets, your abilities, your experience. Be honest to yourself, and then present that to them. Start looking for those companies that are looking for those things you have to offer.
I really love those tips. I wrote that down. Being honest with yourself doesn't mean that you're critical. Because so often we can be so critical with ourselves and we know what our shortcomings are. When people are like, what are your weaknesses? We're like, oh, it's such an easy question. I could list like 100 of them. But
Just
when
one.
someone's, yeah, but when someone says, what are your strengths? We're like, I'm not really sure. So I really like that. It's such simple 3 steps. And as we're prepping for 2025, so we're ending out this year, those are the perfect 3 steps to start with. Identifying what you want out of your career, identifying what you have to offer, and then start looking for an opportunity that really fits within those parameters.
Yeah, I think that's super important because a lot of times, and I understand, sometimes we need to get a job because we need to make a mortgage or rent or whatever. And I get it. But if you really are not satisfied or you really feel like, no, I think I can do better, or I want to do better, I just want to switch jobs, and the reason doesn't really matter. Um, you should really take the time to sit down and think, okay, be strategic about it. What do I want? And what can I offer? Okay, what companies out there that's looking for this? Two things that match up. And again, you don't want every single company. You want the right company for you. Same thing, again, going back to the dating example. You don't need 100 wives, right? You need 100 husbands. You just need one. You want to make sure it's the right one. And the way you find it is by being honest with yourself. You know, just it goes back to the when you're looking for someone, when you're looking for a company. If you say, I'm looking for a boyfriend, I'm looking for a girlfriend, everyone's going to say, oh, yeah, I know someone that's single. But are they the right person? No, maybe not. Maybe. I don't know. Same thing when you say, I'm looking for a job. They'll say, hey, well, McDonald's is hiring. Or it's like, well, yeah, I know, like I get it, but not that there's a bad thing having a job at McDonald's, but I'm a project manager. They don't need a project manager at the local McDonald's. I would be doing a disservice to them and to myself. So yeah, there's jobs out there. There's single people out there, but we want the right one for you.
Yeah, I really like that. And it really comes back to being authentic and being true with yourself and being honest about what you truly want. Because sometimes we get stuck in a job and we don't realize we're stuck in that job because we've just been doing it for so long. But everyone, at the end of the year, we're always reevaluating our life. So if you feel like you're stuck in a job, this is the time to be honest with yourself and really figure out if 2025, if you want 2025 to look the same as it has been this past year. If not, then maybe it's time to make a change. And that's what me and Ramon, people like us, are out there to help you do. Just to switch gears a little bit, I've noticed a lot of trends with people returning back to the office. So back to return to office has been less remote work has been more coming up more and more often. Do you think that's going to be a trend going forward, that it's mostly going to be hybrid or in office positions? Or do you think remote work will continue to be a thing for certain companies?
I think remote will be a thing for certain people. Here's the thing. In 2019, late 2019, actually, I was working with someone, and we found her a wonderful job, and she was very excited. And she said, they were asking actually to move to a different part of the state here in Texas. And she was like, they're paying me really well, but I really just prefer to stay here in Houston. And just for many reasons, right? And she said, maybe I'll ask a little bit more money to make up for that having to move uh, new location. They were paying for her for move anyways, but she wanted more like base salary. And I told her, well, why don't we just negotiate working from home? And she's like, that's a thing. Like, well, we can try. So we tried, and so this was probably like September 2019, and she got it. She was like the first person in that department, I believe, to be able to do remote work. And this again, keep in mind, this 2019. I think that this was not common back then. And so she's very excited. So she got to stay where she lived, and her kids didn't have to change schools, and this was all perfect. 2020 happened. Obviously, we all know what happened. Remote work for everyone for 30 years. Business was normal as usual. And then, 2023, 2024 started happening, and hybrid became a thing, right? Companies want employees back in their offices for whatever reasons. I don't agree with them, but I'm not a company. They decide who gets to go back or doesn't have to go back. For the same reason, I always tell people when you go in for a new job, that is something you can negotiate. The pandemic, this was going to happen, remote work or even hybrid schedule was going to happen in our lifetime. It was probably going to be 10 years from 2020, so maybe 2030, that's when it was going to start happening. The pandemic just moved it forward 10 years. This is, again, we went 3 years, almost 4 years with record profits for companies. People were doing their job. The we proved the concept, right? It wasn't like the whole world ended because people were logging in from home. We were already logging in from home, just unofficially, right? So for 3 years, we were all logging in from home, and we somehow magically were able to get our work done. So again, this was going to happen no matter what. It just happened, and that we pushed it forward 10 years. When you go into a company, and I always tell people this too, when you negotiate, you're not trying to negotiate a policy change. You're negotiating for yourself. So, for example, if they say, well, we don't give an extra week of vacation until you've been here 4 years, that's a policy. It's like, yeah, that's okay. I'm not trying to change this for the whole company. I'm just trying to change this for myself. Same thing with work from home. If work from home, even a hybrid schedule is what you're looking for, you can negotiate that. You can talk to them, make a case for it. And again, it depends on the company and the person, position, all kinds of stuff. But you can have that if you want to. And then again, making that case is not as hard as it used to, because again, we've had 3 years of proven success with not a hybrid work environment, a remote working environment, and it's a normal thing now. So I think there will be more pushback to get employees back into the office. That is going to happen, but I don't think it has to apply to everyone. You have to make a case for yourself, but work from home is very doable now. Frankly speaking, you don't even have to be at it. You can be anywhere else that you can get your job done. Again, this is my opinion. This is the facts. 3 years of working from home are proven facts that this can be done.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with you. I was remote for long before the pandemic as well, because I live near a major city, and I was working in like the outskirts, like the smaller towns around the city. And so I rarely would go to the office that was in the major city because it just didn't make sense. And so I've been remote for years before the pandemic happened, and I loved it. I found it really successful, provided a lot more work-life balance. And I mean, I can understand the side of why they're starting to go back to work, but also I agree with you. I think that remote just makes more sense for a lot of people and, our environment, because less people are driving. But do you think that when you're negotiating remote work, do you have to accept, less income compared to the other people in the same positions who have to go to the office? Do you think you would have to accept that, or what's
No, I've worked with people where we've negotiated very high salaries, like on the top end of the range. Uh, we've negotiated parking. We've negotiated, uh, there's all kinds of things. If you can think it, we can probably negotiate it. Obviously, you have to make a case for it. But no, I don't think you have to give up one for the other. For some people, they're willing to take a less salary because working from home makes more sense. Like you said, they don't have to drive, less wear and tear on their cars, less gas, less parking expenses, all kinds of stuff. But you don't have to give up your salary just because you want to do remote work. That's what I would like to tell people. It's okay to deal with HR for some things, but at the end of the day, you want to talk to a decision maker. HR is not a decision maker. HR is a gatekeeper. HR has to follow the rules that they have on their little policy books. They say, well, no, we can, like I mentioned before, no, we can only give an extra week of vacation once you're here 4 years. To a hiring manager, they might say, you know what? Yeah, I'm sure that's what they say, but we can give you an extra week because it makes sense for us somehow. I'll tell you a personal example. Years ago, I got a job at a company, and as part of my negotiation package, I was asking for a little bit higher salary. Uh, and they said, well, we can give you a little bit higher, but we can't give you all that you're asking because we don't have a budget for it. It's just not in our budget anymore. And they said, well, we really want you. What else can we do? And I said, well, so I thought to myself, well, the reason I wanted an extra higher salary uh, was because I was going to have to drive into the city, and I was going to have to pay for parking in the city, and that's expensive. So, smart me thought like, well, the money I was going to use, the extra money was really for parking. So I said, can you take care of my parking? And they're like, actually, we can. We don't have any more budget on the salary, but we do have budget for parking. They had a company expense basically. So they gave me, they paid for my parking. They actually paid me for my valet parking. So at some point, and again, this was a negotiation with the hiring manager, not with HR. HR told me, we don't have any more budget. I'm sorry. We can go budget. But I talked to the hiring manager. That person had the decision-making power to say, you know what? Yeah, we can't give you more money, but we'll pay for your parking. That was like an extra $5,000 a month, a year. I'm sorry. Anyways, at some point, a year or two later, my boss came to me, and I guess it was kind of around evaluation time, and she said, "Hey, can I ask you something?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And keep in mind, this is not I was pointing at her, but she was not the one that hired me. And she said, "How did you negotiate your parking?" And I said, "Well, I just asked." And I said, "Why do you ask?" And she said, "Well, I just found out there's only three people in the company that have their parking paid for by the company. It's the CEO, the CFO, and you. And I'm curious, how did you negotiate that? Because we all have to pay for parking, except for you three guys." And I said, "Well, I just asked." And again, you can ask for anything. You just have to be creative about it. You can't say, "Well, no, give me $7,000, like whatever the number is," right? You have to like think, why do you want $7,000? Like my example before, my client that I helped out, and she was asking for more money, and it was like, I asked her, "Why do you need more money?" She said, "Well, to make up for the move." Well, what if we just avoid the move? Would that be better? Like, yeah, that'd be better. It's worth more money. Okay, well, let's avoid that. Let's see if we can ask for work from home. Um, again, you have to be creative. Like, think about, what is your why? Like, yeah, we know we want more money, but is that really, why do you need more money? And then once you figure that out, then we can ask for that. I mean, there's all kinds of things that companies will pay for. Yeah, maybe they can't pay you salary, but maybe they can pay for your daycare. Maybe they can buy you a car. In my case, they pay for my valet parking. Uh, again, the sky's the limit. We just have to figure out your why and how we can make that work for the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think of it from a business perspective, not many people might think of this, but paying a salary is something that's outgoing for the business. But if they pay for your parking, that can also be a tax write-off for them.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually benefits them down the line. They have an expense budget, but then they can also write that off against their taxes. And so then they can pay less taxes. So having them, pay for something like a car or gas or something else that's an expense then can now benefit the company as well.
Yeah,
And so it just shows that it can, it's interesting to think outside the box of not just salary, right? And think about those
yeah.
other things that you can negotiate.
I think, in my case, what happened was that it was an expense to the department. It was an expense to the company as a whole. So, the hiring manager, that person's like, sure, we'll give you free parking because it doesn't cost me anything. It costs the company, and that's fine, but at least I don't get dinged for it. Because again, if they see my salary, someone's going to ask, how come this guy's getting paid so much money? Like when everyone's paid, more or less the same amount. And he has to make a case, he has to answer for it, and all this stuff. Like the guy's probably, no, we'll give him some more money. Yeah, we'll pay him a little bit more than everyone else. But the other benefits, they never hit my accounts, so I don't have to worry about it. We're all still above board, and this guy's happy. I'm happy. Everyone's happy, and no one even needs to know about it either. That's another thing too. He gets it off his books, of his accounts, and there's a whole company, and no one worries about it.
Mm-hmm. Just like a curious question, and something that some of my clients have asked me. I teach at a program, and I get asked this question sometimes. So when you are, negotiating something and you get it, like for example, that parking is a perfect example. So you got paid for the parking along with the CEO and CFO, but the rest of the employees didn't. What about when you think about, it being fair? Like some people like to talk about things need to be fair in the workplace. What is your take on that, for as someone who had something that most people in, similar or even higher positions than you didn't have?
You don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. I've been in positions where I felt I worked really hard. I felt I worked more than other people, and somehow other people got more money than I did, more recognition, the promotions, that kind of stuff. And I thought, well, maybe I just need to do it harder. So I worked harder, and that didn't change. I was still, uh, you know, passed over for promotions. People would get the credit. Uh, they would get the money, and I was, well, what's wrong? And I realized that a lot of it has to do with how you negotiate. Again, you don't get what you deserve; you get what you negotiate. So it has to do a lot with soft skills too. It's not just about doing work and that's it. Uh, you have to talk to people, network. I don't necessarily think you need a schmooze. I know some people are really good at that, at the political game. I don't think I'm very good at that, and I don't like doing it, so I don't do that. But I make sure that when I do an accomplishment, I keep my bosses aware of what I'm doing. I work as a team. I never throw anyone under the bus. Some people are excellent at that. That's how they get ahead. But I don't want to get ahead in my career that way. So, uh, you know, I, uh, I talk to people. I listen to people. Uh, but again, I know that I don't get what I deserve. I get what I negotiate. So from the beginning, uh, I do that. I always negotiate for myself when I used to work at companies. And I always tell my clients, like, you want to have a high starting point because that's where your bonuses might be percentage based. It's okay, everyone gets 10% bonus. Well, when you're making $150,000, 10% of that is different than $125,000. So you want to start off uh, high. And also, you know, people value things that are more expensive. They value them differently. I can show you a watch. I'm a big fan of watches, so I can show you some watch, and I can tell you, well, yeah, this is a watch. It does this and does that, tells the time and the temperature and all kinds of stuff. And you're like, oh, okay. But if I tell you, yeah, this watch is $10,000 Swiss watch, immediately you're like, ooh, like that must be really good because it's $10,000 Swiss watch. It does the same thing as all the other watches, right? But we value it differently because it's more expensive. There's this idea that if you're the most expensive person in the department, you're the first one to lose your job. I don't think that's true, but let's pretend it is true. Wouldn't you want to be paid higher than everyone else for a while than get paid less than everyone else also for a while? You want to save your money. You want to make sure we're all going to get laid off at some point. That's just the name of the game now. Our grandparents, no one got laid off. Maybe our parents, some person at some point got laid off, but they got a job quickly. My generation, people have been laid off, but the next generation. So that's what I deal mostly with college students. I tell them, like, you're going to get laid off, not just once, probably multiple times, and that's just what's going to happen. So again, do you want to be laid off, being an employee that just average pay, or do you want to be laid off with an employee who was highly paid? You're still going to get laid off, but which is the one you prefer?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if you spend 10 years in a job at a higher pay, that's going to impact the rest of your life. And so
Yep.
worrying about that, when you go into a job isn't going to, even if you do and probably will get laid off, as we almost all have experienced at this point. Yeah, I think that's a great message. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Any last tips for 2025 for people going into the new year and thinking, I'm sick of where I am. I don't want to keep doing this. I want to make a change. What steps can they take to, start making that change once they have that clarity? They know what companies they're looking for. What steps can they take?
I always tell people, if you're going to make a change, whether again, New Year's coming up, we all have our New Year's resolutions, we're losing weight, all those kind of things. Uh, make a plan. Sit down and make a plan. Don't just wing it. You're going to give up. You're not going to see any progress. You're going to spin your wheels. But if you sit down and make a plan, you can make a big plan. Okay, by the end of 2025, I'm going to be at this kind of a job. Okay, that's a big plan. What are the steps to that big plan? And then breaking down by months. You can even break it down by weeks. Don't get discouraged if you miss a week because something happened, right? No, like you can always catch up the next week. But you have to make sure that you have a plan. It's like losing weight. If I want to say, well, I want to weigh X number of pounds by the end of that year, I can't just say this now and then go into here in the United States. Today's Thanksgiving, so we're gonna have a big meal tonight. I can't just go, well, I'm gonna lose weight, but let me eat a bunch of food. Like, no, I start today, little by little. So yeah, maybe today too much, but guess what? Tomorrow I'm gonna eat a little bit less. I'm gonna watch what I eat, and maybe exercise a little bit more. I've got, all of next year to get to my goal, but I have to start. And the way you start by making a plan.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. And it's all about that consistency, like you said. Of course, we're going to miss some days where nobody's perfect, but if you can maintain somewhat of a consistency with the plan that you create, it's going to go a lot further. If people want to work with you or if they want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
The best way to find me is going to my website. It's persuasiveinterview.com. And you can see some of my success stories with my clients, learn a little bit about my process. And you can set up a free call with me so we can discuss kind of like the questions you have, where you are in your career, what kind of help do you need. You can also go to LinkedIn, linkedin.com /in interview coach. And then you can find me there. You can see the articles are right. I can see some of my daily tips that I provide. And I have this thing on Fridays. I put this thing called Offer Letter Friday, which is basically I put a little screenshot of a text that one of my clients sends me when they got the job, when they've got multiple offers, so they got their negotiation skills, where they want them to be, and they get that big pay raise, or again the big ask that they made and they've got accepted. So I like sharing that. Everyone shares tips on how to look for a job and apply and that kind of stuff. I feel it's always important to also share the success that you can see, like, hey, that person is just like me. They did it. Maybe I need to learn how to do it too. I can learn it. I just need to learn it. So I have an offer letter Friday every Friday on my LinkedIn where I put a screenshot of success story of a text, which is the best part to me. When I get a text saying, hey, I got the job, or I got the offer, or they said, we want you now. What else do you need? And they make it a big offer. So that's where people can find me.
Awesome. I will include all those links in the show notes so people can easily find you, and definitely connect with Ramon on LinkedIn. He does share some really great and valuable content. So thank you so much for joining me today. Well, that's it for today. I hope you loved today's episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you haven't already, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I want to hear from you. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile yet, get one, and then send me a hello. I always love connecting and adding value wherever I can. If you're interested in more content like this, go to my website and download my freebie to be notified of future episodes.